Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Jesus is Satan. I just came from this fella's channel, Bucard, whose link will be at the bottom, and his thing is crop circles and the return of the gods, and he just made this video that we're going to play here about sacred geometry. Now, it's not so much about sacred geometry that I'm concerned about, except that in the middle of his video, at exactly 3 minutes and 33 seconds, and I don't know if that was a coincidence or not, then he places this imagery in at 3 minutes and 33 seconds of Jesus Christ on Jesus Christ on a cross. He places this imagery in of Jesus Christ on a cross as part of sacred geometry, which at that point means that the question that I asked him, so then if Jesus is Satan and this is your infinite wisdom that you are expounding to the masses, who or what is God? So the first part of my question was, so let me get this straight. You put Jesus in at 3:33 because Jesus is also part of a demonic force, and then his reply was, you got it. The story told by the New Testament is in fact a story in which reaches back to prehistoric times when all the petroglyphs and pictographs were created around the world by the fallen spirits who brought wisdom to mankind and mixed their seeds. So that means, ladies and gentlemen, that it's 5:15 in the morning right now, and that all the people throughout all of history have been praying to Jesus, and all the people that have come to Jesus, according to Bucard, are now praying to Satan. That doesn't make any sense, because there is such a thing as spiritual enlightenment or spiritual illumination or a spiritual high called the Christ consciousness or the Buddha consciousness. It's also called mountain fever when for somebody that's in the mountains for 3 or 4 months by themselves and they reach a spiritual high. The Indians have a name for it. There's a name for it in every religious aspect of the world. Each religion and philosophy has their own world. But this fellow Bucard is saying that at 3 minutes and 33 seconds on the tape, exactly 3 minutes and 33 seconds, that Jesus is also part of the demonic spirit, which would mean that everything associated with Jesus is now, because Bucard says this, is demonic in nature. So the spirit entity that told me that this cross was in fact in the garbage or in a suitcase next to the garbage pails is also demonic in nature, and that the entity that told me this cross was in the suitcase and made me walk 2 blocks and go pick up that suitcase is demonic in nature, and that all of everyone's beliefs in this whole history of the world have been, well, we all believe in a false doctrine now, because now Jesus is Satan, according to this. And then the fact that the Ark of the Covenant sets upon the reverse of the $1 bill, which you know I believe in, that this pictograph here, even though it has the representation of good and evil on the reverse of the $1 bill, aka the God pod and the evil seed of death, now the Ark of the Covenant, which I agree was given unto Moses by a spirit entity, and I also agree that the spirit entity was not necessarily God, but it was a godlike being, that everything that we have ever believed in since the beginning of recorded history is now Satan, then I asked this fellow Bucard, I'm waiting on his infinite wisdom, then if Jesus was Satan and Jesus talked about God, then who or what is God? If Jesus is now Satan and the Ark of the Covenant was given to Moses by an entity that was God-like, but not necessarily God, and at 5:15 in the morning, I didn't really need to do this, but if now, when who do you pray to then? What do you pray to? Tell me what you'd pray to. No, I mean, I asked him. I'm waiting for a reply, and then I'll be able to tell you once Bucard tells me, because he believes everything in the whole world is Satan. The pictographs on the pyramids are Satan. The pictographs in the Mayan temples are Satan. Everything to this guy is Satan. Getting a straight answer out of him is almost impossible. It's not like he comes onto the screen and discusses it with you. He just sends these pictographs and petroglyphs and crop circles in, and then he implies that everything is Satan. So if Jesus is Satan, if the cross of Christ that was explained to me was in a suitcase 2 blocks from my house, go retrieve it, and then that was a Satan-like entity, and when I died and I spoke with an entity that told me that one day I would do something that the whole would be world-renowned, which we're breaking on the verge of that at this point, considering the comic book series is going to be out by April 25th. That goes along with my work with the pictographs. There's a full 5-volume series of comic books about to be produced. I just made the final deal yesterday with the fella Martin, who's a minister, by the way, in Michigan. So we at this point, then the minister who believes my story because he has virtually checked all the proofs that I have stated in the videos and found them to be accurate according to the Bible, then if Jesus is Satan, then the Bible is satanic in nature, and then the force of energy or this God or Christ-like consciousness that we perceive to be God is also satanic in nature. And the fact that I said, well, if Jesus is Satan, then we're all praying to Satan and we're all going to hell. And I put a game on my screen and threw one of those card games that you play on the computer. And then look at this. This is crazy. I don't think that Jesus is Satan. I think that Jesus represents God. But look at the card game that came up on the screen, and look at the numbers on the card game, and you'll see that at the top of the screen is the number 7-3, Jack, Queen, 3, 7, 3, 4, 5, 2. So what you have there is you have 3 3s again. So I say I'm not going to go along with Jesus being Satan. At some point you got to go along with that there's a God, considering the understanding that I have and that I've experienced called illumination. If actually there exists a physical reality called illumination, or the God consciousness, or the Christ consciousness, if actually there exists a consciousness called the Christ consciousness or the God consciousness, and I know it exists. The 2 times that I was dead, I experienced a force from a higher plane of consciousness that spoke with me. I've spoken with it even in real life. I've spoken with it. It was the force that guided me to go retrieve the cross from the suitcase. If that's the case, and that is the case, that's the truth. And when I was in a state of consciousness through meditation under the tutelage of Norm Tolson or Master Richard Behrens, if when I was in that altered state of consciousness that you come to know or understand by utilizing the words super consciousness or Christ consciousness, when you move into that state of consciousness, you understand that that state of consciousness is a real place. And when you see that that state of consciousness is a real place, and that state of consciousness brings you to the understanding via the super consciousness that you become one with the universe, one with the universe, and it tells you that the Bible is associated with the Ark of the Covenant that sits upon the reverse of the $1 bill. You only have two choices. You can believe that you are now at this point praying to God, or you can believe that you have been deceived and that Jesus is Satan. And this is your choice, ladies and gentlemen. And at this point, I need to get a bigger camera because this is getting out of control.